Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcon Squad. Sponsored by Game Time. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcon Squad Show starts now.
To the Falcon Squad Show post-game edition, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me, our Falcons analyst, Locked On Falcons analyst, and host Aaron Freeman, and Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis. This squad show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and it is here, finally here, the preseason. And while we are super excited to be talking football, live action football again, we would be remiss in starting the show without acknowledging what happened to the Detroit Lions safety, Morice Norris. Unfortunately, of course, he had an injury tonight that was quite a serious one, stopped the game for quite a while. To begin, that was the first play of the fourth quarter. And of course, the game was ultimately suspended, a decision that was made by the NFL, which we agree with. And we, of course, just want to send our thoughts and prayers, not just to the Detroit Lions, but you saw the impact that had on the Falcons as well. Just thoughts and prayers for Morice Norris, as well as both the Lions and Falcons organizations.
Absolutely, because when you think about, what players go through from a mental standpoint, what you have to do in order to get your mind mentally ready to go play a football game, and see something like that happen, immediately calling for, the stretcher to come out, and then the ambulance pops on the field. That's how you know it's really serious. So, yeah, prayers to his family, the whole entire Detroit Lions organization, and the Falcons as well, because seeing things like that and dealing with that can mess with your mental. So, yeah, not surprised at all that they stopped the game.
Yeah, I think we can talk about it a little bit later, but obviously, your mind goes immediately to the Damar Hamlin situation. That was something that was mentioned on the broadcast as well, and so you hope all things are good for Morice Norris, and he comes out of this healthy. But obviously, a situation that you just don't see that much on the football field, and certainly a serious situation. But hopefully we can get and talk some football so that we don't have to think about some of the darker sides of the sport.
Yeah. And like you said, Free, that's the darker side. But hey, listen, a football game still took place tonight for 3 quarters. And we've been waiting with bated breath for so long to talk about what this Falcons football squad was going to look like live action. So again, as you mentioned, Aaron, we're going to come back to this topic. We're going to talk a little bit more about Norris. We're going to talk about the NFL's decision to call the game a little bit later in the show. But first things first, want to talk to you guys who, of course, joined us yesterday for our Thursday squad show when we talked about what we were most interested in seeing tonight. Like, was it Jeff Ulbrich's defense and what he was going to scheme, or was it Zac Robinson's offense and what he was going to scheme? And let's be honest, we know who lives on these squad shows, so we definitely leaned in the direction of wanting to see what Jeff Ulbrich was going to do. But I'll ask the question first. Jarvis, which one did you actually end up honing in on more, and why? Was it Brick's defense, or was it Rob's offense?
Oh, it had to be the defense. And I think that when you look at the way, regardless of who was on the field, backup, third string, fourth string, I'm not going to make the team string, it didn't matter. Like, guys are out there attacking, guys are out there getting after it. I just had a sense of calmness, a sense of peace. It was 3rd and 7, and I think it was Natron Brooks. He just walked down and looked like he about to, press up on the wide receiver right before the ball snapped. I was like, oh. And then the quarterback tried to try the man. He was just running right up underneath him because, Brooks ain't got that much height on him. So he was right up underneath that wide receiver. And then the ball, there was nowhere to put the football. And he just threw it out of bounds. And, Natron Brooks, put the little seatbelt on. I was like, yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about right there. Just the element of the situational stuff, just perfect. It was just so perfect to see that. And, I just have a sense of calmness or come over my soul when I saw that man walk down like that.
So, Free, when you turned on the TV tonight, obviously you're looking to see what the offense is going to do, what the defense is going to do. But who did you end up honing in on? Which team and why?
Yeah, it was the defense. And I think you saw the version we can talk about 3-4 versus 4-3 or whatever, but I think you saw just sort of in terms of the energy, the identity that the defense had, the version of the defense that you expect this team to have, right? They had a lot of third and long sort of situations, so these pass rushers were able to sort of pin their ears back and get after the quarterback, and that's that sort of attacking scheme that Jeff Ulbrich and Nate Ollie and all these coaches have been preaching. We spent a lot of time on these casts and on Locked On Falcons and Locked On Sports Atlanta last year talking about down and distance, right? And how you weren't seeing the best version of the Falcons offense, which arguably, wouldn't have been all that good to begin with. But, we did see a little bit later in the season where they were able to get some pressure on the quarterback. But, you weren't getting the best version of the Falcons defense because they weren't able to get into those situations where those pass rushers could pin their ears back. And pretty much throughout this game, whether it was a 3rd and 8, a 3rd and 11, a 3rd and 10, they were able to get after Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen throughout the first half. And I think that's sort of what you're hoping to see this defense do to lots of other opposing quarterbacks, better quarterbacks, no offense to Kyle and Hendon, this upcoming season in the regular season. I believe we might have lost T, Jarvis.
Yeah, we might have. I think we might have. So, but yeah, I mean, we can hold it down until T gets situated and everything. But I think the main thing, though, like when you talk about this defense and how this has been one of those situations where there was some concern when Jeff Ulbrich was hired, right? Like when you think about, was it Robert Saleh doing this thing, or was it Jeff Ulbrich? And I think that when you talk about, I know just being out there at practice, it just seems like what he's been preaching, like that message has came through loud and clear.
Yeah. And I think you got a chance to see that in this game. And so, it was nice to see, whether it was Dorless and Rook and AK and James Pierce and Jaylen Walker and all those guys, getting upfield attacking. And, given that we didn't get to see a lot of those guys do much of that last year, it was a pleasant sort of revelation, I think, tonight in this game.
Yeah. There were moments where I literally felt like, Jarvis, I could feel, and I'm putting my hands on like air quotes, I could feel Brick's defense. Like I could feel the aggressiveness that we've been talking about. We've been seeing at practice. We've been hearing philosophized about all off season. I kind of felt like from the first play, from like the opening drive for the Falcons defense, that we saw it. We felt it.
Yeah. And that's what you want, right? Because, and I know a lot of people, towards the end of Dan Quinn's era, and they were talking about all gas, no brakes, and we're gonna win, embrace the suck, and all that stuff. I like people got tired of that, but when you think about when Dan Quinn's defense was humming, like everybody, you saw it, you felt it, and you saw you talking about the ball. You can't breathe without the ball. Like Kay Nellis talked about it on the broadcast tonight. He was talking about you can't breathe without the rock. What happened last night? I mean, what happened tonight was, hey, they got after the ball and they got the rock. So when you think about it from that aspect of it, and you saw it in practice too with Mike Hughes, he popped the ball out a couple times. Like that stuff is settling in. Like those guys hear the message and it's being relayed on the field, and that's what you want. You got to be able to send a message to your players saying, hey, this is what I want. This is how I want us to play. And then once those guys get that message and ingest that bad boy, then they're regurgitating out on the field, and that's what we saw tonight.
Yeah, and Aaron, you think about the first 3 series for the Lions: fumble, punt, 3 and out. I mean, what did you like about those first couple of series and what you saw in the defense earlier in the game?
Yeah. It goes back to them being able to get into situations where they were able to stop the run, get some, successful plays for the defense on some of those early downs and get the Lions behind the chains. I know Hendon Hooker broke out on one of those scrambles when they kind of lost contain. But you kind of appreciate the aggressiveness of Natron Brooks. Got to make the play. We haven't seen him miss too many tackles over the last 2 summers, so that was a first for him in that regard. But yeah, definitely, I think you got to see what this defense wants to be, which is we're going to be able to keep offenses in check, and you got to see a lot of these guys that we're hoping are going to be difference makers for this team. A lot of these young players really get to shine in terms of being that aggressive, being that disruptive presence, and creating some of those turnovers that we saw a couple of times in the first half.
Yeah, Jarvis, I like something that Free said that also stood out to me, especially in those first couple of plays. I can remember last season, even maybe the past couple of seasons, where there was this utter frustration. Just get back to basics, just 101, wrap and tackle. And I saw so much more of that to even early. I know it's early returns. I know it's just the first preseason game, but I think something like that is encouraging as well, because how many times did we see some play that looked like it was about to be broken, some play that looked like it was about to be broken up, or maybe the receiver or even the runner gets 5, maybe 6 yards, but turns it into an actual chunk play because somebody didn't wrap somebody up. I saw a lot of that tonight that I thought was impressive too.
Yeah, the coaching, the coaching, right? That's coaching. Like, when the last time we've been able to say that? Oh my gosh. Like, man, that dude was just form tackling, put the guy on the ground. Like, oh, that's great. And then even on Khalid Kareem, I know we're going to talk about him a little bit later, but even on Khalid Kareem's sack, like when you look at what happened on that particular play, he actually passed the quarterback, retraced his step. As soon as the quarterback stepped under the pocket, he retraced his steps and he came back and got the sack. That's Nate Ollie right there. Right there. Like, hey, man, don't run past quarterback. But if you do, go back from what you came from, and you probably might run into something. And that's exactly what happened on that particular play. So, yeah, that's something that we haven't said about a defensive coach in quite some time.
Yeah. And got to give some love to DeMarcco Hellams. He was out there hitting, like just sort of embodying that
bam.
That that attacking style defense and whatnot. And so like you like seeing guys fly around there and make some of these plays, and seeing some of those guys like Hellams and Arnold Mcketti and others that have been here that you're like, okay, let's see what these guys are capable of. Again, when we talk about these rookies, like you didn't get the splash plays that we were kind of hoping for some of these guys, but like the guys that we know are guys that are established, like the AKs, like the DeMarcco Hellams that we've seen produce and be effective on the football field. Those rookies will grow into those roles, but like you get to see some of their abilities more, the more established players like a Hellams, like an AK, those abilities get unlocked, and you potentially look very forward to what those guys can do this upcoming season.
Yeah, and Free kind of alluded to it. We're not finished. We're just getting started with our defensive conversation. So squad, just squabble up. We're coming back. We'll talk more defense on the other side. This episode of our squad show is brought to you by Monarch Money. So think about this. All of us are kind of challenged, right? When it comes to our resources, our financial resources, doing the right thing. And it's like, sometimes you feel like you have to be all over the place, or you are all over the place with trying to organize your finances. Well, good news. That's where Monarch Money comes in, because we know you wish that it would be easier for you to be able to manage through your money, and Monarch Money has you covered. So you can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Do you have a financial goal? It's still time. You got time. It's only August. So you can achieve those goals. If you share finances with someone, Monarch Money can help you stay on the same page. And if there's a specific category, like if you want to look at the number of takeout meals you get, or look at those subscriptions, the sneaky ones that you forget about, and then you just get charged every month and you're in shock, it can walk you through how to be sure that you don't get those unexpected charges that add up. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. You can use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Again, whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. All right, guys, more defensive talk that I know you love, but listen, I don't normally do this in the middle of our show, but hey, my contacts aren't contacting, so here we go. Oh, wow, look at Free. He's super clear now. Jarvis is super clear. And listen, the reason I put those on too is because we want to make sure that for our first squad show of the preseason that we get you guys involved, because we know you got some commentary squad. So we'll get to you, we promise. But first things first, we want to keep our conversation going about the defense because that's where we knew we'd have our eyes. So I want to go back to, just like we were talking about, that Falcons defense looking like they were out for blood from the very first drive of the game. We saw Josh Wood strip Herndon Hooker. We saw D. Alford recover. Now, unfortunately, D. Alford then got beat on the fade on the first touchdown of the night. So there's that. But let's talk about whether or not we feel like Aaron Josh Woods made a good case for himself first tonight.
Yeah, you got to see, there's a competition at linebacker, right? Especially with Troy Anderson sort of being injured and sidelined. We were,
Who you talking about?
And here he goes.
The guy.
Remind me who you talk. What's his number? What's his number, Free?
44.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know you're talking about. All right, continue. My bad.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Jarvis. All right. With Troy Anderson being sidelined, which is all too often been the situation in the last couple of years, that creates an opening at that linebacker position. And so you had, D'Angelo Malone getting some off-ball linebacker action in addition to getting some edge rusher snaps in the second half, and Josh Woods and some of those other guys. And so I think Josh Woods made a pretty strong case. He's been around the league, played with the Cardinals, was with the Falcons last year, but made a pretty strong case that, if the Falcons are not going to be with Troy Anderson to start the season as a special teams player and a depth piece for this linebacker core, I think Josh Woods made a number of plays showcasing some sideline to sideline speed. And as you mentioned, T, that forced fumble to sort of really get the Atlanta football party started in this Friday night game. So I think he definitely made a case for, potentially being a front runner to land a roster spot based off of tonight's action.
Yeah. And Jarvis, what did you like about what you saw from Josh Woods?
Run and hit. Yeah, and put the man down where he lays. Like do it. Like that's the philosophy. And you talking about a guy who's just fast, look fast, and aware. When you think about being able to hop on the ball when it's right there, those are some of the things that you kind of have to take in and take a look at when you're evaluating this roster, because Troy Anderson is on the PUP list, and we don't know when he's gonna come back. We don't know. We have no clue. So being that we don't know, 42 out there trying to make this squad, like Free mentioned. So yeah, those are some of the things that's why I feel like these preseason games matter, because the difference between being on the practice squad and making that 53 is a big difference come payday. So yeah, like when you see guys out there just really trying to get after it, that lets you know that this means something a lot more than what people may sometimes think from the outside perspective.
Yeah. And just like an Arnold Mcketti, I mean, to see him and Taquan Graham come together with the strip sack, the recovery, I mean, really some nice returns on some guys that know, hey, Free, there's some eyes on them, because Ebiketie, we always say, shows flashes. TQ has shown flashes, but seeing those early flashes maybe gives us a hint that maybe we'll see it on a more consistent basis of returns from those guys this season.
Yeah, definitely. And as I mentioned earlier, where it's like we've been talking about Arnold Mcketti. He might be a forgotten man, to other Falcon fans, but not us. Yeah, we've been talking about him all summer as a guy that, because of where he finished last year, is a guy that you expect to pick up where he left off. And if he can continue that ascent that he showed over the last half of the 2024 season, and he just sort of continues riding that upward trajectory, that's a guy that you you're very intrigued. We talked about it before, where it's like if there was anybody that you were betting on to potentially be a quote unquote breakout double-digit sack guy, I think Arnold Mcketti is probably your best bet of those guys. And I think tonight he got to show people, hey, like I'm that dude. Like I'm ready to go. This is my contract year. I'm trying to get paid. I'm about to ball out this upcoming season. So I do think he really showed a number of times, because I think he not only got the sack strip, but I think he also got the pressure on that first fumble where him and Rook were sort of on that side that caused Hooker to sort of step up in the pocket, that led to him eventually, fumbling on that Josh Woods hit in the D. Alford fumble recovery. So, he was a guy that popped a number of times tonight, and that's what you expect him to do, given that he's a veteran player that's shown what he can do against starting caliber players. And now you're facing backups, go and eat, young man.
Yeah, and I was screaming at television, like, if you follow me on Twitter, you saw what I was doing. I was acting a little nut, baby.
Yeah, with the shades on the inside of the house. Okay.
Like, cool, like that, just because Free and I, we've had a lot of conversations about pass rush, and we, like you said, we've had a lot of conversations about Arnold Mcketti, and I think the main thing about him is, and the reason why I feel like he has the potential to do that. If I'm putting some money on a guy, I feel like it was on display tonight, because the handwork is there. Oh my gosh. I just love the way he just came off. He knew exactly what he was going to do. He wasn't fumbling around trying to do all this shimmy stuff. He was like, boom, cross chop, boom, boom, come down, get the sack, strip the ball out too. Oh yeah, I'm doing multiple things at a time. I'm multitasking. So, and when you see a guy come clean like that, because most of the times guys don't get beat clean like that. And I know a lot of people talking about, oh yeah, they're backups. Sure. But there have been plenty of times where the Falcons have played against backups and they haven't. And they're sitting there with their hands on the offensive lineman, and the quarterback sitting, third, fourth string quarterback sitting back there patting the ball like he doggone about to make some breakfast or something. But so I think that when you have those two different scenarios going on at the same time, or I'm saying, and you see the difference in it, like it has to be acknowledged. And when you have a guy that has been kind of quietly ascending, not necessarily amazing balling out and all that stuff. If you've been paying attention, like we have, like you understand and see that you're not surprised by what we saw tonight from 17. And I think that I am so excited for what's in store for a guy like Arnold Mcketti, because this is a perfect system for him. And I think that he's going to flourish.
Yeah. Aaron, who else do you want to give game balls to tonight?
I mean, I already gave some love to DeMarcco Hellams.
True.
So, I'm trying to think of, should I just, continue to pour the love on DeMarcco Hellams for going out there?
Why don't you just do it?
Yeah, because that's who I'm going with. Come on, let's go.
Snatching souls, I'm just trying to think of, was there anybody else that really popped? Yeah, I'll just go with the low-hanging fruit, with DeMarcco Hellams just blasting dudes, just going out there and doing the thing that we all knew DeMarcco Hellams could do. At Alabama, it was like, hey, you going across the middle? Okay, I will see you there. And he gave some love to Craig Reynolds, who was briefly a Falcon. I don't think their time overlapped, but I saw somebody said, like, Hellams hit him like he owed him money, and I was thinking, like, maybe they did spend the summer together, and he did actually owe some money when Craig Reynolds was on the practice squad a couple of years ago for the Falcons before he went to Detroit and whatnot. So, DeMarcco Hellams went out there, showcased, not only some special teams ability, but some run defense. That big play, you could say maybe was not necessarily in ideal position deep on that 68-yarder to, I believe it was Jackson Meeks, if I'm not mistaken, in the first half. But, we kind of knew that's not really the strength of DeMarcco Hellams. You just want him, hey, put him in a box, let him go hit people, let him be an enforcer. That's what he brings, makes him unique among this safety room. And I think, you know, I saw some chatter, when the Falcons brought in Jordan Whitehead, and they're like, oh, DeMarcco Hellams, maybe he's on the bubble. It's like, no, man, that dude brings something to this defense that nobody else on this defense has, and you got to see it tonight.
Yeah, I would kind of like echo just a little bit with DeMarcco Hellams, because he's the guy that I singled out as a guy who I feel like has the most to prove, because people trying him like, oh yeah, Jordan Whitehead, woo, all right, DeMarcco Hellams, see you. No. Like Free said, he is an asset, because the other safeties, Jesse Bate, the best safety in the league, but he ain't hitting like that. He's a ball hawk. That's his quality. That's what got him paid, and hopefully they can pay him to stick around for a few more years to continue to be that guy. But when a guy like Hellams, though, I feel like he proved it. He proved like, hey man, I belong. I don't know where, but I know I belong. And there needs to be a package for me to be out here on this field at some point once the season gets rolling. But I think one guy that I really want to highlight is Zach Harrison, because I really like what I saw from him. He got some early work. Talk about that. Nate Ollie kind of mentioned the big nickels situation, and we saw that early on. He was out there, for run purposes, but they end up passing, and he was able to put some pressure on the quarterback, put that long body in front of that quarterback, and hey, you try to figure it out, and like really make that offensive tackle feel him, because he has that length, he has the measurables to be one of those guys in this particular defense. So I think I like what I saw from Zach Harrison in the run and the pass, like being a two-way guy. I love two-way guys. Like if you can rush the passer and be stout against that run, I'm all for it. So yeah, Zach Harrison was another guy that popped for me tonight as well.
Anybody from the rookie class, since it was such a defensive heavy class, could we be talking about wanting to see Jaylen Walker, wanting to see what James Pierce was going to do, whether it was a play or whether it was a guy? Anything stand out from the class of 2025?
I think each one of them, I recall having moments. Nothing that was like you're gonna, maybe we'll rewatch the game and tomorrow and see
some world beater stuff.
Yeah. But like, just moments. Like I remember there was a play where James Pierce got a pressure where he kind of looped in on an offensive tackle, got him to overset, and then sort of beat him with a little counter move and got in the face of Hendon Hooker in the first half. You saw a nice disruptive edge setting play from Jaylen Walker. I think there was a nice tackle by Billy Bowman where he came down and fit in the run and whatnot. So I think you've got to see moments of those guys, and hopefully we'll continue to see them build off of that as the preseason games, as we hopefully get to see maybe more of those guys. But given what happened tonight, Raheem is definitely going to probably be very cautious moving forward with playing some of these guys. So we'll see on that front. But I think you saw moments that, again, I think a lot of people had expectations that these guys were going to hit the ground running right away. You didn't quite see that, or at least I didn't quite see that in this game, but certainly moments that make you feel like they're on track to be positive contributors this upcoming season.
Yeah. And for me, I think one of the guys I like, not necessarily his play, I like how they were using Billy Bowman. And the situations that they put him in, I feel like he shined and say, hey, this is what I like to do. Like from sending pressure, from sticking his nose in there on the run in the running game. I love that. I really feel like Billy Bowman is the most perfect fit on defense for this rookie class. When when you talk about from just the mindset, the mentality, James Pierce Jr., sure, yeah. But, there was the character issues and all that stuff, those things. And then Jaylen Walker, not necessarily built like an edge rusher, is normally built in the NFL. But when you talk about a nickel in 2025 in today's game in Jeff Ulbrich's defense, I feel like this dude is the perfect fit, just a perfect fit. And I love how they were using him tonight in this game. So yeah, I really I'm really getting more excited about what 33 brings to the table.
Yeah, now Free on the flip side, maybe there are some players, I don't know if we'll say they didn't get any balls, no game balls, but maybe we wouldn't give them a full game ball. Maybe it's an incomplete for them sort of grade. So anybody on the defensive side of the ball where you said, okay, not bad, but not good.
Well, I'm wondering how much Jarvis's love for Billy Bowman is inspired by his lack of love for D. Alford at this point in time. So,
wait a minute, you the Alford hater? I'm not the Alford hater.
What? I don't hate D. Alford. You know, I don't.
I don't hate anyone. Let's go put that out there. You know what I'm saying?
44. You don't even say his name.
I don't hate Troy.
Mm-hmm. You know 15. You don't say his name either. What's that all about?
What's that all about?
You know, when you refuse to acknowledge someone's
talking about his play on the field. I'm not talking about the man.
Okay.
I'm talking about his play.
Okay. I'm just saying. Okay. Basically, to answer your question, T, D. Alford did not have the type of inspiring performance that made you feel like, hey, he's due to have a bounce back season, like we were hoping. How much hope you had would vary between individuals, but we've seen good play from D. Alford, not so much recently, and we're still waiting to see some good play from D. Alford this summer. So I think we'll wait another week, basically.
Well, Aaron, I hear you on that one, but it's like, okay, how much longer are we supposed to wait? Because we've been waiting. Come on, D. Alford, come on. And like, he gave us this one great play, and then it was like, dang, D, come on, bruh. Like, it's just, that's the kind of thing. So Jarvis, I think, like I said, maybe no one on defense was a no balls type of guy tonight, but maybe wasn't a game balls guy either. Maybe he was just like, I don't know.
I'm going to go with the other rookie that we haven't mentioned yet in this year's class, Xavier Watts. Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. With me, I'm not surprised because I felt like Watts is a guy that's going to take time. He's going to need reps. He's not going to need to get out there and get comfortable. And he looked uncomfortable tonight. I mean, he looked like a rookie. There were times where I thought he was even a little bit timid, when he came down to coming down and filling that alley. I mean, I know Kobe Bryant had he didn't quite know which way he had force, or he wanted to force the wide receiver to bounce outside, or he kind of flipped inside. So that may have had something to do with it. But, I think that there was a little bit of timidness in his game. Not bad. No, I'm not saying it was bad, but like you said, I feel like it's gonna take repetition. Like, I feel like he'll probably be a guy that if they allow him to play in the third game, he might see something, or he might be, go back and watch the film like, oh, okay, being that he's a student of the game, he might go back and film and say, you know what, yeah, I should have done this on this particular play and do this. Okay, next week against the Titans in practice or in the game, I'm gonna work this out.
Yeah. Now, one group on the other side of the ball had themselves a night. We'll talk about it on the other side. This episode of our Falcon Squad Show post-game edition is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, the Falcon Squad, we're playing Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. So I know for me, Yahoo Fantasy is pretty much the only fantasy that I've used for years, and the updates they're rolling out this month are wild in the best way. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or even join a public league. So stay tuned for more killer announcements. Start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. Right, Jarvis, time to switch to the other side of the ball. But guess what? I'm going to make a switch too, because Free is going to start us off, because we are starting this segment off talking about the one, the only, the undisputed number 12, Easton Stick had himself a night, Free.
4-time national champion Easton Stick showed you why he was, a winning quarterback in college.
We need to get Maria. Where Maria at? I'm calling her on. Yeah, calling my boy out like that.
And Easton Stick showed, he's been in this league, bounced around, or not really bounced around, kind of stuck in LA for the last 7 years, basically. And you're just consistently carrying that clipboard, and you get these preseason reps. This is, we did get to see him late 2 years ago or whatever, when Justin Herbert was dealing with some injuries, and it wasn't pretty. But this man is a master of the preseason, right? This is his time to shine. And that's why I sat here, for those of you that missed it, on the most recent Falcon Squad Show on Thursday and said, hey, Kirk Cousins, you got to keep your head on a swivel, my guy. Easton Stick is coming for that job, and you got to see it. What was it, 11 for 14 tonight or something like that?
18.
And so
119.7 QB rating.
You saw efficiency, and it just, and then you got that 2-minute drill at the end of the half where it's just just chopping up this Lions defense, and then he just drops that beauty of a pass in the bucket to Chris Blair, and you're like, oh yeah, this is why this guy is a 4-time national champion. All right, this is why this man has been a preseason superstar over the last couple of years. Not so much last summer, because that led to Taylor Heineke getting traded, but we don't remember that. We'll blame that on Greg Roman. Right, we got a real offensive coordinator here in Atlanta with Zac Robinson. Yes, I'm actually praising Zac Robinson for once on one of these shows, and just get the magic of Easton Stick with Zac Robinson, and it was a thing of beauty tonight. And so, I just sit here and I go, Kirk, watch out. Easton's coming for that job. Don't get stuck with Stick. That's all I'll say, with Easton Stick doing his thing in this game.
Oh my gosh.
Jarvis, I'm not sure how you're going to come. I'm not sure how there are more superlatives that you can find for a guy in Easton Stick that averaged 8 yards per pass tonight and managed to get 1 touchdown and no interceptions.
Yeah, when you think about the quarterback situation, right? Obviously, it's very interesting. They had the highest paid backup in the league, the best backup in the league. Whoever gets hurt, starting quarterback gets hurt, the Falcons are going to be the first team that gets called. It may or may not depend on if the team is a serious contender or not. But if they want to win games, hey, they're gonna make that phone call. So when you have a guy like Easton Stick, because there is a part of the fan base, and a little part of it is in me too. I'm like, okay, that's a nice emergency plan. It's an expensive one, but it's a nice one. Mm-hmm. But when you have a guy like Easton Stick come in and do what he did tonight, look like a veteran, man, he can come in and because you're not going to ask him to do what he did tonight for 7 games. Hopefully, if Michael Penix does get hurt, it's on the maybe a game, half a game, or a game or so. They'll have film on him, so he can go out there and kind of, chop the Lions up like he did the Lions tonight, and kind of and get into the end zone and hopefully get a win. So that kind of gives me a little more calmness when you say, okay, if a quarterback gets hurt and Kirk Cousins is traded, okay, who's going to be that backup guy? And I think Easton Stick proved that, yep, he raised his hand and said, yeah, I'll be that guy, even though I was behind a little bit shaky offensive line in the beginning.
But what I like about it too, Free, is as much as we're joking about what Easton Stick was able, well, you're not joking about it, it's Jarvis, but I digress. But as much as Jarvis is joking about what we saw in Easton Stick, what his performance really allowed us to do was see the wide receivers and really see what they're made of. So, Free, when you look at the performances that we saw tonight and you think about what we got out of just being able to evaluate what Chris Blair was able to do, what David Sills was able to do. What were you most impressed about with some of the performances you saw from the wide receiver room tonight?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, T, because I can think back to many summers where the Falcons backup quarterback play. Basically, it was like, I don't know if any of these wide receivers can catch a football because no footballs are going to them. They're 12 feet over their head in the dirt, all this stuff. And so when you have competent quarterback play, you can actually sit here and evaluate your receivers. And we know there's a potential opening at one of those wide receiver spots for a potential last spot. And, you know, the early returns in training camp with Darnell Mooney's absence, you've been hearing more and more that Casey Washington is getting more of those reps. But I think after tonight, you got a couple more guys throwing their hat into the ring with, as you mentioned, David Sills, Dylan Drummond having a good day, Chris Blair having the nice touchdown catch, as well as another, big catch down the sideline on one of those fade balls that we hope to see quite a bit from, not Easton Stick or Kirk Cousins, but from, some other quarterback that may be in Atlanta. And I'm not talking about Emory Jones. What's his name? Michael Penix Jr. His ability to attack the ball down the field. So I think you saw a lot of the things that you wanted to see from a lot of these wide receivers. And, you went into, or at least I can't speak for everybody, but I know I went into this summer. I'm like, yeah, they lose one of their top three guys. We know what Kadero Hodge can do. He's solid, but they go, if Darnell Moody's absence lingers and Drake London goes down or whatever, you're a little nervous about this wide receiver depth in terms of so much of this offense, beyond Bijan Robinson, is driven by just having guys that can go out there and win. And you wonder, hey, do they have other guys that can go out there and win? I think you saw a couple of guys do that tonight.
Yeah, Jarvis, I think that's what we got out of this game as well on the offensive side of the ball. We got some really, really good opportunities to look at the play of the wide receiver core overall, and it had to be encouraging.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. I think Terry Fontenot made a very interesting point during his interview on the broadcast. He was talking about not necessarily, it wasn't about scheme. It was basically putting players in position to win. Right. And the thing in the NFL is, where's one-on-one coverage, or where's check down? And they were able to find that one-on-one coverage, and those guys were able to win. The Nick Nashes, the Drummonds, and the Chris Blairs of the world. Those guys were able to win their matchups. And I feel like, and I'm going to give it a little bit more oomph than Free did, you got to give some credit to Zac Robinson. Give us, from the play calling and everything like that. I thought it was solid. He was putting guys in the right matchups where he wanted to. When Easton Stick hit Chris Blair with that one-on-one fade down there, it was a perfect ball. It was a perfect play call because you knew what you had. So hey, I know what I got over here. So Easton Stick, soon the ball snap, boom, one step, let it go, and let Chris Blair go get it. So yeah, I got to give credit to Zac Robinson for putting those guys in position to win. And I think that's another coaching, like, kudos. Like, that's two of them, talking about defensive coaches, that good coaching out there. We saw that good coaching on the offensive side of the football too. And then at this, when Emory Jones came into the game, we saw a little bit of RPO. Like, we saw some RPO. I was like, whoa, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, hey, man, this man in his bag a little bit, even though it was a little basic. But when you see the play caller make those type of adjustments, I know I got a different type of quarterback in the game. So let me switch it up a little bit, not try to force feed my system. I feel like, hats got to go off to a guy like Zac Robinson for that.
Something else I noticed, Jarvis. I saw some play action tonight. So I was
Yes.
I was intrigued. I
put that in all caps in my notes, just for you. Play action.
What is this strange thing where they fake the handoff to the running back and then throw the football down the field? I was like, I've never seen this before. What is this? So, kudos to Zac Robinson. I think Jarvis nailed it. That was something that was a little up and down last year during the season, where it was like we always getting the most out of every one of these players. Like sometimes we are, but sometimes you're like, why are we calling that play? Why are we calling back shoulder fades to Darnell Mooney? That's a Drake London play, those types of things. And I think, as Jarvis mentioned, whether it's Emory Jones, whether it's Chris Blair, and some of these other guys, that you got to see a guy that looked like he was more comfortable with what his players are capable of doing going into year two. And hopefully, obviously, that continues into the games that actually matter. We love praising play calling in the preseason, but ultimately, no one's going to remember. Oh, you remember how that RPO that he ran with Emory Jones? No one's going to remember that come September, but it is off to a good start when we talk about, again, building off of the things that the Falcons did well last year and improving on some of the things when we talk about the defense that they did not do well last year, and you're getting to see that. And so that's these, it's preseason, so you got to find whatever you can. It's the good, take the positive when you get it.
Indeed. And real quick, guys, I just want to ask about game balls. Who we got for game balls on the offensive side?
Mine. 4-time national champion. Give him 4 game balls. Okay.
Mine got to go to the HBCU grad alum, Chris Blair, Alcorn State. Like he's a guy that kind of lingering around on the practice squad. I love to see guys like that get highlighted because, hey, you don't know. He might be able to, get Casey. It's Casey Washington. Like he might be able to get him. You don't know that. We don't know that because, you only can be on the practice squad for so long before your time is up. So I think, guys putting together games like that, or if he doesn't make this one, he's putting some good tape out there for another team that might say, you know what, come on down here. We got a spot for you.
Indeed. And anybody on that offensive side of the ball, other than Jarvis giving, I'll say a half a game ball, a half a no ball to the O-line, but free anybody that you want to give a no balls to on the offensive side?
I don't know if I'll go as bad as no balls, but Jack Nelson had a little shaky start. That first series was a little rough, but I saw him settling in as the game wore on. And, I think it might have been the play that Morice Norris got injured on that run by Nathan Carter. But I recall there was a play at some point late in the game, right before the game got suspended, where Jack Nelson, took a deep end and just moved him like 8 yards off the ball, and they ran right behind him. And I didn't see this sort of shakiness that we saw in the first series and whatnot. So, it was a shaky start, but I do think he kind of settled in. His nerves probably got the better of him at the beginning of the game, and I feel like it'll be interesting to go back and watch the film to see how exactly he settled in and whatnot.
Yeah. Jarvis.
Yeah, I think, Javon Gwynn, deserves a little mention, not necessarily bad, but, just out there, being his thing, doing his thing. And I think that, as far as the run game, I was a little like timid, like even coming, we talked about this on Locked On Falcons, when talking about that backup offensive line, like across the board, it was a little shaky. It was shaky because they could not run the football. They just couldn't do it. And the only way they were able to move it was to put the ball in the air, and that's what they end up doing and scoring a touchdown. But like the bread and butter of this team is going to be the run game. Now, granted, with that starting offensive line, sure. Yep. Those expectations are through and through. But you still have to be able to move those guys because those guys are second and third stringers too. So you got your second and third string offensive line going against your second and third string defensive line. Somebody got to win, and they did not do that tonight. So but like you said, towards the end of the game, before it got canceled, you saw Nathan Carter, explode up in that bad boy. I was like, whoa, what is this? He kind of jumped, he popped. So that's encouraging to see, hey, first game, first quarter jitters, got him out, settle down. Dwayne Lepper on the sideline, like, hey, man, chill out. You do this. You've been playing ball all your life. Let's go out here and let's make some plays and get after it. And you kind of saw that towards the end.
Indeed. And never fear, we have not forgotten about my favorite part of the team, the third rail. We will talk about Mo Williams' squad on the other side. This episode of our Falcon Squad Show is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest. Some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. What's the wildest shot you've ever made? Was it a total fluke or a well-calculated miracle? What's the most ridiculous shot you've ever seen or taken on the golf course? Well, golf is pretty cool in that way because it could be all over the place, but it's good times with good people. And with 5-Hour Energy, good flavors. Of course, the grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the beverage cart. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my code Locked On Golf to receive 20% off your order. Again, my promo code is Locked On Golf to receive 20% off your order. Now, this offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. But whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, the energy boost you need to power through is 5-Hour Energy. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. All right, guys. So we got some good looks. We saw some nice work out there for Marquise Williams' special teams crew. Kreig out here like kicking like he was trying to kick a ball to Midtown or Buckhead somewhere. But real quick, Jarvis, who stood out for you on special teams?
Billy Bowman running down in that gunner. I was like, yes, man, late round pick, bro. Yes, you gotta establish yourself on the special team. So, him getting that special team tackle, getting that rep, that really was a sight to see. Like, and I'm not surprised by it, right? Because when you think about mindsets of certain guys or being the perfect fit for this defense, I think that him being on special team, going down there, taking it seriously, being aggressive, because gunner is hard, from someone who will never, ever even thought about doing it, maybe in elementary school, when I was almost an average size human, you know what I'm saying? But I would not do that. And, because it takes a certain level of crazy, and just be honest, to go out there and have success with that. So, yeah, I think Billy Bowman was a guy that really stood out to me. And, I'm not surprised at all that he's going to flourish in that role.
Yeah, for me, DeMarcco Hellams had a couple of nice plays, but yeah, Billy Bowman, I think, had the sort of standout tackle on that punt team. And, got to give love for Lenny Kreig. It was, we were talking about this on Locked On Falcons, Jarvis and I. It's like, is the kicking competition over? Is Koo locked it up? And, what you wanted to see from Lenny Kreig was whether or not he could, say like, not so fast, my friend. And when he boomed that 57-yarder, you're like, how far did that ball go? Like that could have been good from like 65 based off of the look I got, And so, he didn't hook the 53-yarder a little bit later in the game, but certainly, one of the things that I think the Falcons, what attracted them to Lenny Kreig, as we've discussed before, was that big leg, and you got to see that on full display.
Yeah. And guys, we mentioned this earlier, so we do want to circle back to it before we wrap up the show. And that is just talking about what happened tonight. We started the show off just with our thoughts and prayers, and we want to just reiterate that for the Lions family and even the Falcons family and the organizations, because it was tough for everybody to see that gruesome injury to Lions safety Morice Norris. First play of the fourth quarter. Officials, of course, eventually called the game, but that was something that Dan Campbell and Raheem Morris also talked about and agreed that was the appropriate thing to do. And I think we would agree that it was the right call. It was the first time since August 19th of 2023. That was back when that Patriots-Packers game had to be suspended. The Patriots corner, Isaiah Bolden, suffered an injury, but Jarvis Free, I know you guys would agree that was the right call for tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about going through that situation, like we talked about earlier, like it takes a certain type of mindset from a player standpoint to go out there and play this game, because you know how dangerous it is. We know what the risks are when you go out there and you put on pads, probably about 5 to 7 pounds of pads when they get wet, and you run into folks. So at full speed, like it's just basically Highway 285 accidents happening, on every play. So when you think about it from that aspect, you're like, okay, you're surprised that it doesn't happen more. I know the gravity of it kind of hits you when it does happen, and the seriousness of it, sure. But thankfully, we don't see this every game, every week. We see somebody getting carted off in an ambulance. And from what Free said he saw online, and said that Dan Campbell said he's responsive. So
yes, he is responsive.
Great news. That's great news. So that's good. So we hope that he continues to progress and we'll be out the hospital and then headed back with not necessarily with his team, but at some point be headed back home to where he belongs. So, but yeah, when stuff like that happens, you got to make those hard decisions. I know some people, I heard a slight booty. I don't know if you heard that too. On the broadcast seemed like it was a slither of booze that would kind of when they shut down the game. But people pay. They paid to get in the game, so I don't want to see 4 quarters. So I understand that side of it too. But when you talk about just from trying to get back into football mode after all of that, that's hard. That's super hard.
Yeah, and yeah, Jarvis. I mean, that's a great call. Like, I don't think those fans. It's like both things can be true at the same time. On one hand, you can be very sad for what you saw and very somber for what you saw, and hopeful that something good will still be the final result of it. But on the same token, equally true is these fans have been waiting with bated breath to see all of these players. There's so much anticipation. What will they see from Jaylen Walker? What will they see from James Pierce Jr., especially because they're not going to see certain things on the offensive side of the ball. So yeah, they did feel like, wow, that's an opportunity gone. So I don't think they were the boos. Yes, you absolutely heard the boos correctly. We could hear it here at the stadium in the press box, if you will. And fans stayed for like all of that time until the game was finally called. But again, I don't think that they were booing out of disrespect to what happened to Morice Norris. I think it was just more of like kind of feeling deflated because of what they came here with. Because I will tell you this, there was some really good energy in here to say this was a preseason game. I was saying it, got here about 90 minutes before kickoff, and I was like, okay, Falcons fans, I think they're ready. But just real quick to piggyback on what Free said, yes, Dan Campbell did confirm, quote, as it relates to Morice Norris, he's breathing. He's talking. It's good. He has some movement, and now they are running more tests. I ask that everybody prays for him. And that was the thing I was thinking of too, Free, as well, that some of it is an abundance of caution. Like, you have to strap him down. You have to have his head in the protective device, if you will, because we all know what we've seen before in instances, and we know instances where that didn't happen quickly and what the result of that can be. So just such a credit to the Grady Hospital staff, all of the EMT people who were here to make sure that Morice Norris was where he was supposed to be, which was being cared for with the top trauma hospital in the state, making sure that that injury isn't something that has to be more serious than it already was. But that said, just real quick, wanted to ask you guys if that makes you maybe give a little more grace to Raheem Morris in deciding not to play most of his starters, because you do, albeit Norris not a starter per se, but you do get nervous that something like that is going to happen.
Yeah, I think it underlines the point that Raheem Morris, that abundance of caution that he has when it comes to, putting his players, and as Jarvis mentioned, putting his players potentially in harm's way. And as Jarvis mentioned, because this is, professional football, you don't see situations like this happen all that much, just because the players are very good at what they do. They know how to not necessarily lead with the crown of their head, and that leads to these types of scary injuries with Morice Norris, and not to suggest that Morice Norris did anything wrong on that particular play, but just like it is something that is relatively rare that you see, and then things like this happen where it's like, oh yeah, this is, and as Jarvis put it, like it is a bunch of guys getting into car accidents, every 15 seconds or whatever, and getting back up again and saying, let's do it again. So, I do think this, as someone who is very much, I want to see as many of these guys as possible during the preseason. I certainly think this is going to cause you to be like, okay, this is why Raheem Morris, takes it the way that he takes it.
No question. And again, our thoughts and prayers are definitely with Morice Norris for him to have a full recovery. Thanks to our everydayers for making this Falcon Squad Show the post-game edition, your first listen of the day, your favorite show of the night. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. And also, of course, catch Jarvis, who's a frequent contributor for Locked On Falcons. We will see you next week.